All right, Todd Sommerfeldt here from La Crosse Tribune. We have a guest, Jimmy Hart, with us today. We're down at the Legion, big RCCW show on tonight, and you're going to be part of that. You'll be here for a meet and greet. If you want to start with that, tell us about the trip in and the meet and greet tonight.
River City Championship Wrestling. It's going to be unbelievable. We're going to have a great time. My good buddy Derek called me, and he said, Jimmy, you need to come up and help. We've got a big charity event going on for our radio station, I think 97.5, The Rock. And so I said, buddy, I'm coming on up. So we're going to have a great time tonight. It's going to be beautiful. And free parking, Everybody always laugh. I always say free parking everywhere because a lot of people think people charge for it, but you don't. Free parking!
When you come to the smaller towns like this, you can get free parking, I guess.
You know you can, but a lot of people don't realize it sometimes. Every dollar helps saving.
Yes, that's right. We have James Crosse here with us, who's behind camera right now as well. We're going to talk to Jimmy about his career and all that kind of thing. So let's start by the first question I had is, how do you go from music to wrestling? Because you were in a band and that was your profession before, and then you got into wrestling.
I went to high school with Jerry the King Lawler. I had a band called the Gentrys. We had a million seller when we got out of school called Keep On Dancing. Did all the Dick Clark tours, and Jerry Lawler, of course, went to professional wrestling. So wouldn't you know it, he loved wrestling. I mean, he loved music, and I loved wrestling. So all of a sudden, after about 4 or 5 years of me touring with Dick Clark and Jerry doing the wrestling, he called me one day and said, would you help me with the wrestling album? And I said, I'd love to help you with it. And the next thing you know, I've still got the band on the side and I'm doing professional wrestling. And so after that, about 6 years there, and I got the phone call to go to New York, and I said, feet don't fail me now, baby.
So how did he actually get you in the ring?
Well, it was just...
how do you talk you into that?
Well, he knew I played high school football and baseball and basketball and everything, so he knew I was a fairly decent athlete. And so one thing just led to another, the same way Andy Kaufman got thrown into the ring. You know, he never had a lot of experience, but before you know it, you know, he was in the ring and I was managing him along with Jerry, was fighting him, and so it was a great run we had with Andy.
How did that whole thing come about? Did he just reach out to you guys and say, I want to do something?
You know what happened? A guy up in New York, one of the gentlemen that does the wrestling magazines, he was going to do something in New York and they didn't want to do it, so he called Jerry Lawler. Bill Apter, he called Jerry Lawler and said, look, I got this comedian on Taxi, Andy Kaufman. The show was doing great, you know, why not use it? And he fights these ladies, you know, into gender wrestling. And he goes, yeah, bring him down. We brought him down, and so he challenged a lot of the ladies in the audience. You know, I can beat you at $500. I can beat you in the next 10 minutes. So he did that week after week, and one day he was kind of roughing up one of the girls pretty much, and that's when Lawler stepped in. The next thing you know, Lawler and him had a feud. The next thing you know, I'm managing Andy against the King. So it was one of those things. It was a great story at the particular time.
And it was a very long story.
Oh yeah,
that played out. I mean, which we don't
over 2 years.
Yeah, and you don't see that nowadays.
No.
How did you guys kind of come up with that whole program? Was that Jerry? Was it all three of you? Was it the two of you? Did Andy have ideas?
It was mostly Jerry and everything else. It just he was fighting the ladies, and all of a sudden Jerry stepped in to help them out. The next thing you know, he was fighting Jerry every week, and then the next thing you know, I'm managing Andy. You know, because he needed a manager at the time, but we had a great run. You know, he and I tagged up against Lawler and one of his partners. The next thing you know, Andy turned on him, then I turned on Andy, he turned on me. I mean, it just went for year after year, but it made great money back then.
Yeah, but I mean, there were so many twists and turns to that. That's why I'm in terms of the creative.
You know what? It's just like it just keeps going. No, it just keeps going week after week after week. And of course, Andy was great. He stayed at my house. His favorite wrestler was Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, and he loved Elvis Presley. When the shows were over on Monday night, we'd have to get in my car before I'd go to Louisville, and I'd have to go by Elvis. And I said, look, Elvis passed away in 1977. He's been dead for 4 years. He goes, no, he's going to come out that gate tonight. I know he's going to come out the Graceland gate. And I went, oh my God, he's not going to come out the Graceland gate. He never came out either.
Okay.
But Andy loved it. He really did.
Tell me what it was like being in front of those crowds, because you watch it on YouTube or wherever you can find it now, and it was insanity.
The crowds were really into everything we did back then, because it was all the interviews came from our heart. What we said on TV is what drew the people in. And I guess they didn't like what we said, or maybe they did like what we said. That's why so many of them came out. But they hung on every word that we'd say week after week after week. And, you know, when Andy would come on TV and go, Memphis, Tennessee, this is the toothbrush. I know you rednecks ain't never seen no toothbrush, but this is how you do it. Up and down. Oh, and this is soap. I know y'all hadn't seen no soap, but you wash yourself with this. But he did that week after week, and the people really hated that.
Yeah. Well, and crowds then were different than they are today, where they were a lot more involved with what you guys were doing. Were there any memories of certain incidents with the crowds?
They were involved so much with us, and we didn't realize it until years later, but 7 out of every 10 households were watching Memphis wrestling for an hour and a half every Saturday morning in Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, parts of Alabama and Missouri, because that was our territory then. Mm. And people would come in off the farm. You know, later on in life, they'd say, man, I'd be out doing my farm chores, but when they're 11, hey, Mom, what time is it? It's 5 minutes to 11. They parked that tractor and came on in. Yeah. You know, but everybody watched it and they loved it.
Yeah. What were some of the big differences, and I'm sure there's 100 of them, in terms of working for the big national company versus territory? I mean, I'm sure there are positives and negatives on both.
You know, when you go to the big leagues, buddy, you fly everywhere and a little bit of driving, but down there it was all driving. You know, Monday night we'd be at the Mid-South Coliseum. Tuesday night, Louisville Gardens, that was about 7 or 8 hours away. Evansville, Indiana, the next night, which is about 2 hours. All the way back down to Memphis, another 4 hours. Tupelo, Mississippi, every Friday night. Saturday morning, doing that live TV, and when that was over, we drove all the way to Nashville, another 4 hours up there. So 7 days a week. 7 days a week.
So that was the start of it.
Yeah.
What kept you in it for so long? I mean,
because I loved it. What kept me in it is because I loved the wrestling. When I was growing up in school, my Uncle JB used to take me every summer down to Jackson, Mississippi, and one of my trips down there, he said, Wednesday night, we're going to watch professional wrestling. I went, oh, great. We went and watched it, and I fell in love with it back then, even though later on I had a music career. Yeah. But when I'd make all the cities back in the day, I'd look at all the TV schedules, and if I was in Atlanta, I'd go, let me watch Georgia Championship Wrestling. If I was in Florida, I'd watch Florida Championship Wrestling, because I lived in Memphis at the time. Same thing in Texas, I'd watch the Von Erichs, you know. And I just grew up loving wrestling, and so it really fit in with me perfectly.
Okay. Is that where association with Hulk Hogan started? In Memphis?
Hulk after? But when I was in the music, I would go down to the Coliseum to see Jerry, and one day Jerry goes, look at that big guy in the ring over there, and he goes, and I went, God, he looks great. He goes, trust me, he'll never make a dime in this business. And I went, what? Now, when I tell Jerry that, he goes, I never said that. He did say it too. But I knew he was going to be a star. And of course, when I went to New York for the first time, Hulk was already up there then. And he goes, oh, are you coming up to manage me? And I said, nah, I'm managing King Kong Bundy and all the guys I used to have down there. But Hulk and I have been friends for 43 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And how much, and did it start with, how much of that's been like musical and how much has been wrestling? Because I know he's a musician too.
Yeah, he
played. You guys have a bond over that as well?
You know what? I didn't know he even had a band back in the day when I first met him on that. It's just all been wrestling with us, but we did an album together called The Wrestling Boot Trash Can Band, and we just had a good album off that, and we did a lot of musical stuff together. But you know, for some reason, we just been. I always say our relationships lasted so long because I never borrowed money from him, and if he asked me a question, I always told him the truth.
Yeah. Okay, one question before we leave Memphis. Obviously, you did a lot of your time there working with Andy. Mm-hmm. Who were some of the guys you really liked working with?
Oh my God, Coco Beware, Jerry the King Lawler, who got me in the business, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Dutch Mantell, Austin Idol, the Dream Machine. The Iron Sheik came through. I managed him. Rick Rude, I managed him down there. King Kong Bundy, I managed him. And then when I went to New York, I was able to manage King Kong Bundy again for a while. And then I had, of course, Jim Neidhart, which we teamed up Bret Hart with that. We had the Hart Foundation. So
when they put them together, were you the first one with them?
Yeah.
You were the one who kind of introduced them?
Yeah, we called ourselves the Hart Foundation then because when Bret came in, they wanted him to be a cowboy, you know, and ride a horse into the ring. And he went, horse in the ring. He goes, why not put me with Jimmy and Jim Neidhart? So that's when we had the Hart Foundation.
Okay. Yeah. How quickly did you get involved? Because we were talking about music before. How quickly did you get involved with the music and stuff at WWF?
WrestleMania 1. Went up and I was on WrestleMania 1. And Dave Wolf, Cyndi Lauper's manager, said, Jimmy, I know you were part of a group, but after this show's over, a couple of months, we're going to cut a wrestling album. Have you got a song for it? I said, boy, do I have a song. It's called Eat Your Heart Out, Rick Springfield. And so we cut it. And he goes, the second album, he goes, you got any more? And I said, yeah, how about this one for the Demolition? You know, so I wrote that. Me and my partner did. And after that, we just kept on writing stuff, you know, for Dusty Rhodes, The American Dream. We wrote them for, of course, Ted DiBiase. Shawn Michaels, to this day, has 10,200,000 hits on Spotify. Sexy Boy. And it just kept on rolling.
Well, what's the difference in like writing music as you did when you were younger versus writing wrestling entrance music?
Well, when we're writing music for the for radio, we tried to make it more commercial and make it have a theme. You know, it's usually about love. You know, boy breaks up with girl, girl breaks up with boy, ba da 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 da. You know, those songs always are hits. You know, where girls can, growing up, can listen to them and go, oh, that's my boyfriend. They're singing about me. You know, and so. But in the wrestling, you just write about what you feel and have fun with it. I always made sure I'd watch the guys go to the ring and make sure whatever I wrote, when they came to the ring, they could get, like the mounting. When we did the one for Jock Rougeau, and one of the lines goes, we don't like heavy metal, we don't like rock and roll, all we like to listen to is Barry Manilow. And Jock goes, who's Barry Manilow? And I'm like, oh my God, am I in trouble? But we just had so much fun doing them.
So did you get input from wrestlers too on that? I mean,
No,
did you say,
not
hey,
really.
this is kind of what I'm thinking? Maybe
No, not really.
They may not have had
Only
interest
one,
in
Dusty
it.
Rhodes, he goes, Jimmy, you gonna write me a song? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I'd like to have a cowbell in it. I went, cowbell? He said, I'd like to have some girl singers. I'd like to have some horns. I said, damn, Dusty, you might as well write it yourself. He goes, so I made sure we started off, had that cowbell, boom, boom, boom. And it goes, he's just a common man, woo, had the girls singing, so it turned out pretty good.
You got some questions?
Yeah, I had a few questions in
Yes,
relation
sir.
to the music and transitioning to wrestling.
Look, I like this guy. He's wearing a wrestling mask. Nobody can see that, but I like that. Dr. X.
The first thing I had was, how much did your career, you mentioned touring with Dick Clark and being on the radio and getting a national hit at, you know, as a teenager, how much did that help you when you transitioned to wrestling and in dealing with crowds and
You know what? It
executives?
happened a lot, and I'll tell you why it really helped, and I'll tell you why. Dick Clark, one night with a tour with the Beach Boys, he pulled us into a room for the first show, 5 or 6 day tour, bus tour. He said, look, when you're on that stage, give the audience something special. He said, remember this, if you dress like the audience, one day you're gonna wind up sitting in the audience, meaning be colorful, you know, because if not, they're paying a ticket to see you. I went to a show the other night, I won't say who it was. The guy came on stage, he had blue jeans on. He had an old sweatshirt on, smoking a cigarette, right? Drinking out of the thing, you know, and it was cool. And the people liked him and everything else, but I thought, man, why not give the damn people their money's worth? I said, well, lucky Dick Clark didn't see this.
Obviously, you applied that to all your wrestling gear too.
I did. Every match, all my guys, I wore different outfits for them and made it colorful, and I think it helped make them colorful too. But I just wanted to give the people their money's worth, have showmanship into it. When people saw Jimmy Hart, whether I was good, crazy, or whatever, at least I was colorful.
Another one was, you mentioned all the wrestlers you worked with in the ring. Who were your favorite to work with when making music? One of them, you sort of mentioned Coco Beware. I know he had a lot to do with that Pile Driver album.
My favorite ones to make music with, Coco Beware, of course, but the Honky Tonk Man. Honky Tonk could really sing. We had all those big hits, a honky love, and you ain't nothing but a honky dog baby, you know. But we had fun doing them, and we shot videos with them. But Ted DiBiase was great. Shawn Michaels did a great job of singing "Sexy Boy," you know, with that song. So everybody we worked with was pretty good. And then we also had an album out called the Wrestling Boot Traveling Band. It was me, Hulk, and a few other guys on that. So that turned out really good for us too.
What led to you wearing as many hats as you ultimately ended up doing in your career, in terms of, you came in and you're a manager, occasionally you got into the ring and worked with these guys. You get into music production, and eventually you get, you know, all these other hats you pick up during your career. What ultimately sort of motivated you to just pick up whatever sort of got put in your lap?
Well, you know, I just wanted to stay busy doing everything, you know, and I felt like it made you more valuable. But doing the music, a little bit of the booking back in the day in Memphis and in WCW with some of the other guys, and I love doing that. And I always loved trying to help people out, you know. I had a tag group called the Glamour Girls, Judy Martin and Lonnie Kyle. They were great, but we had a team coming in for WWE called the Jumping Bomb Angels. Now you got the phone call.
Oh, yep.
The Jumping Bomb Angels. So we bleached their hair, put gold robes on them, and all of a sudden they were the Glamour Girls, and had tremendous matches. But I had fun doing that, you know. I just love staying busy, you know. Everything I've ever done, whether it was music or the wrestling business or anything, I just wanted to give it 100% because, you know, it won't be around forever. You know, it's lasted a long time for me. You know, we got a new Mattel action figure that just came out that's doing phenomenal.
Okay.
And new Funko Pop coming out this year, and just got through filming a lot of stuff for the WWE coming out called Rivalries, and one with Mick Foley called Lost Treasure. So it kind of keeps you plugged in. And the younger talent now is so phenomenal. This is what's great about these shows here, because you get a chance to come in to see some of the young kids that hadn't really made it to the big time yet. And that way you can call in and go, man, I just saw this kid over here in La Crosse. This guy's good, man. So you just never know who you're going to see. And like the show that we're doing tonight, it's going to be great, you know. 6 big matches, of course, and free parking. And it's at the American Legion, you know, building over here. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. It really is. And radio station, I believe 95.7. Part of the proceeds goes to their charity. And it's just going to be a great night. Hopefully we'll have some of those guys coming out and participating with us too.
Okay. I just thought of one question in your answer there. You mentioned booking. How much of that did you do? And it seems like every time if I look online, people who used to be bookers say that it's not a fun job. And what was your take on having that job?
A booker is the beginning of the end, because sooner or later you're going to be gone. Well, it wasn't me just by myself doing it. I was just kind of helping out. So I made sure if I was going to get cut, it wasn't going to be because I was in charge of the whole thing, if the ratings were up or down. And it was just, you know, sometimes you just throw little things in, or you see certain people and you go, why don't we do something with this person? And that was more or less. You'd always have one person that would make the final decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You were part of WCW when the whole NWO thing came out.
Yeah.
After going through the Andy Kaufman stuff that you did, which at that time was just regionally, what was it like going through something that big on a national platform versus in Memphis?
Oh, it was unbelievable, really, because a lot of the people that we had over there were people I already managed before anyhow. And they were on WCW, but it's just a bigger stage, more cameras, bigger buildings. And of course, with the WWE, we kind of got used to it, because look at our crowds there. Hey, trust me, if WrestleMania hadn't been successful, we wouldn't be sitting here now, you know, and probably wouldn't have had a WCW or anything, because they took it to a whole new level, new stage with celebrities and pay-per-views, and it's just, look how it's grown since then.
Yeah. In that regard, do you think the Kaufman thing, that kind of showed the impact
I
of
think
something
the
like
Kaufman
that?
thing really helped thinking about that, because it let other superstars from TV or music or from movies come in and be part of a lot of the wrestling territories. You know, everybody started kind of picking up on that, and you still see it today.
When you do that, when you bring somebody from the outside in,
Right.
I mean, you've been part of the wrestling community for a long time here. Were the guys open to that mostly?
Yeah, everybody was, because you forget back then, you made a percentage of what the gate was, and the bigger the gate, the more money you were going to make. It wasn't no big guaranteed contracts back then, and so we knew if we had a Mr. T in there and a Cyndi Lauper in there and Muhammad Ali and Billy Martin, man, a lot of people are going to watch this, and so it turned out really, really good.
Yeah, I was just curious. Some of the wrestlers are like, you know, some of them are stuck in their ways or something like that.
Nobody was upset at all,
Yeah.
that I know of.
To kind of go off of what he said, I think you have a unique relationship with modern wrestling in that you still work with WWE, with their community efforts and things like that. So you get to interact with.
I do, and I still watch the younger talent, because, you know, if you do what you've always done, you're going to have what you've always had. The old saying. That's why you've got to go out. You've got to recreate stuff, and you've got to find up and coming young talent. I mean, and that's the key to it. I mean, look at the WWE. You got Seth Rollins, you got Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair. Oh my God, that Jade Cargill that just came in. Bailey, just Charlotte Flair. It's just, oh my gosh, the talent they've got now is just tremendous. You know, it's just tremendous. It really is. And so I still enjoy. You know, Hulk and I we were at the Royal Rumble in a big booth up there watching everything, and I told him, I said, man, look, it's just unbelievable. Look how we started. Look what it's really progressed to now. It's the greatest show on earth.
Speaking of Royal Rumble, I have to ask, as long as we have you here, what's your take on the whole Cody Rhodes and Rock and Roman Reigns thing?
Wow,
I
you know,
mean,
that's really a good one, but here's the thing. I'm going to leave this with you. Cody's got a thing going, I want to finish the story. Okay. when you finish the story, where do you go from there? And here's a perfect example. Jerry Lawler was on David Letterman with Andy Kaufman. Before it took place, Andy called Jerry on the phone and Jerry goes, well, what do they want us to do tonight? He goes, well, David Letterman wants us to come in and shake hands, hug and everybody, and bury the hatchet. He goes, well, Andy, if we do that, you know, it's all over. The program is over. He goes, what? He said, where do we go from there? He said, once we shake hands and make amends, who are you going to fight? Come back to Memphis. We can't fight anymore. Andy didn't realize that. So when they went back on TV, that's when Andy did the thing to Lawler, and Lawler did the thing. It was just spontaneously, but the program kept going. So what I'm saying now, I know a lot of people want this guy to win or this guy to lose or whatever else, but if the program's over, where do you really go?
It's just created much more of an uproar than I thought it might. And
Where do you
and
go?
you know,
And I'm not saying what's right or wrong. You know, it's what it's going to be. It's like Triple H said, what's best for business?
Mhm.
What's gonna make the most money? And you know, sometimes you got to have a lot of dissension, because look, everybody's not going to love one person. Everybody's not going to hate everybody. You know, you're going to have a lot of people that love Cody, a lot of people that love The Rock. You know, and you know, it just, controversy is going to be controversy no matter what. But at least it gets everybody talking about it. Because look, you're talking
That's right.
about it now, and I don't have an answer to it. I don't even know what I'm even talking about. You know.
Well, and when Cody lost last year, that's my mind immediately went to the Kaufman thing, because now it's like, now we got to wait a whole nother year, and you
But
don't
everybody
see
did.
that kind of thing.
But everybody did.
Yeah.
Look
And
at
now
box
maybe you
office,
have to wait another year.
WWE business, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Look at WrestleMania, 2 big days in a giant stadium, where before our biggest crowd for WrestleMania was 93,000 people on one day at the Silverdome, but now you go for 2 days.
Mhm.
The talent now is just phenomenal. Production's phenomenal. It's just social media. You know, sometimes social media can help you and sometimes it can hurt you, but you know, for the wrestling business, it's really put it on the map, bigger than everything.
You got any more questions?
I'm good.
I just wanted to ask, how often are you out doing these kinds of shows and that kind of thing
Well, you
nowadays?
know, off and on, you know, like we do a lot of the charity things too and everything else. But when my friend Derek called and his friend Shay called, and I just said, you know, I don't mind coming up there, because we used to be in this territory a long time ago anyhow, back in the day. And we'd come through here, and I said, yeah, let me come up. Radio stations are always great, you know, and charities, everybody tries to make money for charities. You know, a lot of charities need to make money now to keep going. And so we just came up, we thought, let's just do this and try to make it work. So they were gracious enough to bring me up here. And so, like I said, 6 big matches tonight. We've got different celebrities coming in from the radio station, and part of the proceeds go to 95.7, the radio station. Some of their DJs are gonna be here tonight. And hopefully we're gonna have a great crowd tonight. Weather's gonna be perfect. And it's gonna make a little money for the American Legion. I'm sure it'll make a little money for the charity, and you know, and everybody will have a wonderful time.
All right.